This is the Fuel Sports Network.
Behold the King of Kings.
We couldn't do diddly poo.
I'm dropping the hammer.
No, you're not.
And that's the bottom line.
Here, have a quarter, make a phone call.
I have wrestled with an alligator.
What?
I done tussled with a whale.
What?
I done handcuffed lightning, throw thunder in jail.
Funky butt loving. Did he say funky butt loving?
There's no crying. There's no crying in baseball.
Let the big dog eat.
Woo! Whoa! Woo! Whoa! It's time!
Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing today? Hopefully, everyone is doing fantastic on this September Wednesday. You know, there's been a lot of stuff going on in the sports world. We covered a little bit on the A-Train show on Monday. And we talked about some things going on in the NFL. You know, obviously we had to have our jokes about the Cowboys and several other things, obviously. You know, and I'd said, don't sleep on the Steelers. You know, they're not a bad team. Do they have some quarterback issues? Sure. Do they have some other issues? Absolutely. But don't sleep on the Pittsburgh Steelers. What I would say to all of those watching NFL football, if you're an avid fan, if you are in the fantasy football aspect of it, or, you know, whatever, and you just like to follow the sport, there are some teams to watch out for. There are some sleepers out there. There's we'll see as the season goes on, as injuries start to pile up, as things start to change, we shall see what ends up coming from a lot of that. Now, what I want to do right out the gate is I want to let everybody know, the avid viewers and listeners of this show, who those are tuned in already this morning, I thank you for tuning in and being here with us today. We are going to be moving now. Because, well, where are you moving to? Well, we're going to be moving times. Wednesdays at 9 a.m. has been great to me. I've not really any complaints. It's always really good timing for me per se, but it's getting to a point where I'm going to have to navigate to where people can be able to watch the product. And we've gotten to this point now where Fuel has grown so much, and, you know, a lot of people are, you know, upset because they can't view me in a timeline. They got to go find the show because, you know, it's buried in the timeline of social media. It becomes frustrating for people, and I get it. So what we're going to start doing is we're going to start transitioning the Derek King show to a primetime slot. Now, there's going to be some changes. There's going to be some new things. There's going to be some new stuff, some new faces. There's going to be a little bit different format. It's not going to be a lot like this where it's much more personal. It's going to be a little bit more produced, I guess you should say, but not too overly produced. Those that have followed my content for quite some time know that I hate overly produced product. I can't stand it, frankly, to be honest. It's one of those things to where I feel that at the end of the day, the fans deserve to have something a little bit more personal. And that's what I feel that needs to be done. We had to make a minor adjustment to the camera resolution there. It was just a little on the high side, and you know how that goes. Sometimes you just got to make some adjustments on the fly because we just don't do that. But a couple of things, obviously fuelsportsnetwork.com. Go over there, check out all the great articles, stories, just the content, all the creators, podcasts, vodcasts, and all the great stuff that we've got going on over there at fuelsportsnetwork.com. We're constantly changing that, adapting that. There's always updates to that site going on daily, weekly for sure, if not daily in most instances. So make sure you go over there to fuelsportsnetwork.com, subscribe, sign up. We won't bombard you with stuff. We'll only send you important things whenever like a new article comes up, and you can opt out of that stuff too as well if you don't want to do that. But that's there too, obviously, as well. The other thing I want to hit on and touch on is make sure that you're following the social pages, Facebook and Twitter, or Twitter X, showing where I'm at on this whole platform thing. But definitely go over on X and Facebook. Make sure you add us over there too as well. And like I said before, don't forget to sign up on the website. But don't forget, we're also over on YouTube too. We're going live right now as we speak over on YouTube. So that's another one of our big platforms over there. But I wanted to get out of the way initially that there is going to be a change to the format of the show. I'm excited about the change of the format to the show. And it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. There has been a lot of feedback from the fans and viewer base that want to see that. So we're going to do that for them. And that's what we're here for. We listen to you guys on every single show. There's times where we may not respond to comments or whatever the case is, but we still go back and we look at it. We watch it. And we pay very, very close attention. And obviously we're very, very in tune with the analytics and stuff like that. We know what you guys want to see and what you don't want to see. And when we get that feedback from you, it helps us tailor the content for more of what you want to see and what you want to listen to. Now, obviously, we're pretty sports heavy over here, as you know, and as you could see behind me with my glorious backdrop of different sports related memorabilia and different odd and end things. I've got so many different hobbies and different things that I enjoy to partake of, sports wise, movie wise, pop culture wise. I try not to get too deep in some of the crazy stuff, but obviously anybody who's followed me for any period of time and has followed some of the shows and things that I've belonged to over the years, I really had made my name early on, and this has been about a decade ago, doing sports talk stuff, namely things related to the St. Louis Baseball Cardinals. And I was invited to do a show at one point in time with the great Ron Nuttall, who also does a couple of shows here over on the Fuel Sports Network. TOR, Team of Rivals, with Pete Geddes, and sometimes part-time, some of the time, guest host, Elliot. And we got to pick on Elliot. And at the park. And, so whenever I started doing that with Ron, again, almost a decade ago now, and we really had a lot of fun, and we really succeeded, and we really did well. And that's where I kind of started. And then obviously I started going into writing a lot of articles about the baseball Cardinals and so on and so forth. But I was really interested in a lot of other different sports, a lot of different things related in the sports world. And I wanted to kind of dip into those. And so I did. And over time I had partnered with other entities and other programming partners and had done some other things, and really had found my niche with the NFL situation in St. Louis and what had happened, because I'm such a avid football fan. I've played a fair amount of football and really love football. And so once I really dug into that, that's where I really had made my name and had really kind of fell into my niche of what it is that I do and what I've done. Again, you can go over to fuelsportsnetwork.com and you can check out all of my articles over there that I've written, the exposés, the investigative pieces that I have put together over the NFL's exodus from St. Louis, what they did, how they managed it, what they put together, how they put it together. One of the big things that I would point to early on during that process was it was very humorous to me that it was so obvious of what the NFL was doing in St. Louis and what the Rams were attempting to do. And when I mean the Rams, I really mean Stan Kroenke and his cronies and the people involved with creating that entire, mythos around St. Louis not being a successful NFL city, not being a successful sports town. So it's one of those things where I go, okay, you have your opinion and you have a lease that gives you an out clause at such and such time. You could have just left. You had every right to. You didn't really have to make many excuses, but here was the thing. The rules that were based around the NFL and still are based around the NFL and their relocation bylaws, which protect them from antitrust lawsuits, Sherman Act stuff, so on and so forth. I can get on into the legal ease, but I am no Dan Lust and I am no Dan Wallach. Those gentlemen are the smart ones when it comes to sports law. But I could tell you that they did not want to have a fight. They just wanted to go. And they knew that if they wanted to go, they were going to have a fight on their hands. And they did. Even though they did what they did, they went the direction that they went, they still had a fight on their hands. And when it came down to the end of it, I remember a lot of people in national media actually reaching out to me and having conversations with those individuals whom are still good friends. And I stay in contact with those individuals throughout the United States and a couple of them throughout the world. And we've talked ad nauseum about it. And the truth is that everybody else, it was the worst kept secret really around, that everybody knew that the Rams were going to leave, that they wanted to leave, that was their intention. That being said, there was a lot of us that held out hope that the NFL would stand by their laws and their bylaws and their rules and stuff, obviously threat of lawsuit and other dangers involving it, that they would say, okay, well, we're not going to do that because this is too risky for the rest of us, and we're not going to do that. That's not really what happened. It was really worked on by the powers that be to make sure that it went the way that it needed to go in order for them to get out. And I think they took a calculated risk. And a calculated risk it was, and it cost them nearly $800 million in the process to the city of St. Louis to do so. So I say to them, to those, there's your golf clap. You got what you wanted. Nearly a decade ago, that the Rams' exodus from St. Louis was secured, thanks to the falto de facto commissioner of the league, Jerry Jones, and others involved in that entire process. They knew what they were doing. They knew what they wanted to do. They knew how they needed to do it. And they made it happen. And the Raiders at the time were being pushed heavily to go to St. Louis because they wanted to make sure that they filled that market so that way they wouldn't get sued, because they knew that's where it was headed. And so for myself, I looked at it and I said, okay, Raiders to Vegas makes sense. Raiders to St. Louis, I mean, it really didn't. The brand didn't seem to fit. But the Vegas thing made sense because it's Vegas. Now, obviously, San Antonio was, being courted very heavily. They got screwed. Let's just be real about it. San Antonio has given up. They've thrown their hands up and said, you know what? Listen, we can't fight against Jerry Jones and the McNair estate. They're not going to allow another NFL team in the state of Texas. They don't want to split that pie any more than they already have. Obviously, the Arizona Cardinals have been putting up a massive, massive fight on both fronts, to where now their market has been drastically reduced because of the Raiders coming into Vegas, or at least that's what they feel and what they claim. The Arizona Cardinals situation out there in Arizona is not the best it could be. You know, that entire situation out there with sports in general is not good. You have a populace that is dwindling, age-related. A lot of retirees moved out there years ago. Those people are starting to move on from this earthly plane, just to be factual about it. And you're looking at a population decrease. And in those instances, you're seeing where they're in trouble with their NHL team. They're in trouble with their Major League Baseball team. Where does it go from here? That I cannot tell you. I do not know. All I can tell you is that their lease comes up in the mid 2030s. And if other municipalities and cities, well, such as St. Louis, Salt Lake, San Diego, if they want to, the Chargers are still out there in LA. I think that it takes a deep pocket owner to come in and go, you know what? We're going to buy the Chargers. We're going to move them back to San Diego where they belong. And I really think that that's really what needs to happen. I think the Spanos regime, how should I put this the best way that I could explain it? Their little practice run is over. It's done. You guys screwed the pooch when you moved that team out of San Diego that has spent a majority of their existence there. You built a fan base there and you destroyed it. You nuked it because you weren't getting what you want. So like a petulant child, just like Stan Kroenke, you didn't get what you wanted. And so you wanted to move. Kroenke was a little bit different because he was purely, it had nothing to do with anything but money. It was a pure business move, period, full stop. And when people sit there and go, well, he's a Missouri guy. Do you realize that Stan Kroenke has not been in Missouri for a long, long time? That he really resided out in Malibu anyways for years and years and years and years. He could care less about St. Louis. And when he lied and went on television interviews and radio interviews, and he had done these things, and said it, and I quote, I led the charge into St. Louis to bring football back to St. Louis. I'm not going to lead the charge out of St. Louis. No, that's exactly what you did. And you used the guys and the excuse of that the fans didn't support it because of the garbage product that you put on the field from 2007 all the way until 2012 for years and years and years. And it was a trash product. It was a garbage product. And when people were tired of paying, anywhere from between $500 to $200 a ticket to watch your garbage product on the field that did not do a lot of winning, then you wanted to turn around and point your fingers at the fans. That's the one thing I will say about Bill Bidwell. Bill Bidwell in St. Louis never pointed his fingers at the fans and said that it's the fans' fault. I would even push people to say, you need to go back and you need to look at some of the interviews that he did just after the move. And after that move, he made sure to not blame the fans. That was something that he made sure that he did. And I remember the interview of him basically saying, don't blame the fans. One of those things to where I would say is a very important thing to go back and watch. And what we're going to do right here, right now, is we're going to present that. And I believe this is the correct interview. I could be wrong, but this was him announcing their intention to move to Arizona, to Phoenix specifically. And this is something I think we all need to watch. So let's go ahead and partake of that for a moment.
The National Football League today to transfer the Cardinal franchise to Phoenix, Arizona.
Why the move? The final decision?
The final decision was made about the middle of the week.
Can you tell me why you decided to relocate to Phoenix, Arizona?
Competitive reasons.
Why not Baltimore?
Biddle also called St. Louis's elected officials to give them the bad news.
No, I can't pin the blame on anyone. I will have to say that Gene McNary is probably the only person that for 3 years was aware of what the problem was and was willing to do something about it and try. And I have spoken to Mr. McNary this morning, and that was a very emotional call, too.
There you go. You know, that was them announcing the move to Phoenix, Arizona. There is another interview, I should say, that's out there on YouTube that talks about the move and interviewed Mr. Bidwell outside of NFL offices in New York. I believe it was in New York. It might have been outside of the team meetings in Chicago, but I believe it was in New York. And he did discuss basically not blaming the fans, because one of the interviewers, one of the reporters had asked about, is some of the blame to be put on the fans? And he said, no, absolutely not. It's not the fans' fault. As to where Stan Kroenke, in his memorandums from Kevin Demoff, that slimeball, sleazeball, professional liar, was, did in St. Louis. That's the ones that I would sit there and go, okay, that was a flat out lie. You made that up, and you did that on purpose with ill intent. You intended to hurt a fan base. You intended to hurt people with that process, and that was not fair and not justified, frankly. So I say to those individuals that on the LA side of it, hey, you got your team back. You got the Rams back. And that's great for you. What about us? We didn't do anything wrong. We've done nothing but support teams in this market. And we're not crybabying about it by any stretch of the imagination, by all means. But we've got other options now. And I've warned this of NFL fans and others involved with a lot of this, NFL-oriented type stuff. I've said, when you leave a market for a decade or more, that fan base that you had is started to dwindle. When you exceed a decade, now you have to re-envelop a new fan base again. You have to create a new fan base all over again. From the timeline of when the Cardinals left St. Louis in 1988, at the end of the 1987 season. So from 1988 until 1995, there's your span. 7 years. 7 years. Where are we at right now with no football in the St. Louis market? The end of 2015, beginning of the 2016 season. 2024. We're at nearly a decade, 9 years. You're running out of time. But then again, that being said, we've got the UFL. Let's be real. I'm not trying to make fun of anybody here. I went to the UFL last season. I was a season ticket holder. I will not be a season ticket holder again this season, even though they've been ringing my phone off the hook trying to get me to re-up with my season tickets with the Battlehawks. I was not happy with the product. I was not happy with the production of the product. I was not happy with a lot of things. And I am just going to call it how I see it. I was definitely not thrilled with the product. I was not thrilled with the and again, I'm trying to be very careful about what I say, but I was not happy with the fan outreach. I felt that there was a lot of false narrative, that there was a lot of the team and the organization chasing their own tail, so to speak. I don't really think that they knew what they were doing half the time. And that for me was one of those type of situations or scenarios where I looked at it and went, okay, it's clear to me that the individuals who are running this organization administratively, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. They just really don't seem to get it. Parking, I felt, was outrageous. That's my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. You could disagree with me all you want. I felt there was a lot of people that were trying to cash in on the product. I'm disappointed with that. I'm disappointed with the fact that there was no fan outreach programs. There was really, like there was no on the field stuff, no fan meet and greets with the players and stuff like that. There was really nothing. And not that we were promised anything, and I'm not belly aching about any of that, but I felt it very difficult for someone who's out of direct market for me to drive the distances that I drove, to then stay at a overpriced hotel in downtown St. Louis next to a defunct football stadium, to pay overpriced parking for some of the times I didn't even pay for parking because I was paying for valet at a hotel that I was staying at, to then not have any other like fan giveaways, just something. I mean, something on field, meet and greet, something. I really feel that they've overplayed their hand in St. Louis. The UFL has. Now, again, this year, maybe they come back and they fix it. I just won't be a part of it. Why will I not be a part of it? Because, again, I know things. And I won't say it. I just won't, because it ain't going to get me anywhere. And I don't want to disenfranchise another fan's excitement of a product and keep football excited. And that's why I bring it up. We're coming up on 9 years, coming up on a decade of not having football in the market. They have to find a way to keep fans energized and excited about the product, about football. So that way they could stay out of the market just a little bit longer than they typically would. And they can come back and they don't have to rebuild an entire fan base like they've done in LA. When the Oilers left Houston, which was an absolute massive mistake, I was a huge Houston Oiler fan. Loved Warren Moon. Loved everything that they were doing down there. Loved those colors. Loved that team. And then they moved to Tennessee and became the Titans as we know them today. That was one of the biggest, outside of allowing the football Cardinals to leave St. Louis. That was, I think, the second, and the Baltimore Colts to leave Baltimore. I think those were the three biggest malfeasances in NFL history, allowing those teams to move. I still think that allowing the Rams to move out of LA and allowing the Raiders to move from Oakland to LA, there's a lot of different things. I think those are bad enough, but I think the biggest mistakes were those. Big Red leaving out of St. Louis in 87, 88. The Oilers leaving out of Houston in 94, 95. And moving to Tennessee. Those, I think, were the two, in the Baltimore Colts, allowing them to leave in the cover of darkness to go to Indianapolis. The reality is the NFL doesn't want to be out of St. Louis. That's the truth. They didn't have any other choice. When the power brokers that control everything say they want to do something, they just do it. If you have a publicly traded company and somebody sits at the top of the pile with all the AAA stock and all the voting power, and they want to do something, can you tell them no? They may not even sit on the board. They just have all the stock. Maybe they don't want a board position. Maybe they do, but maybe they're not the chairman. Whatever. The reality is you can do what you want. And when Jerry Jones sits at the top of that pile, that's what will happen. And that's what will continue to happen until things change. So we're at 30 minutes, actually 31 minutes now. We're rolling in. And I had a little bit of a lead in, so I got a little bit of cutout time. But we're going to go ahead and start to wrap this thing up for the week. And I want to thank everyone for tuning into the show. I want to remind everyone that we are going to be changing times, that we are going to be going prime time. I do not know the exact date. I do not know the exact time per se, but it is coming, and we will keep you informed of where we will be and when we will be going there. So don't worry yourselves. I will be back. We will have another show. It will be in a primetime slot. There will be some changes. But I just wanted to let you guys know. Going up to the show today. Remember, like, share, subscribe, YouTube, Facebook, X, FuelSportsNetwork.com. Check it out. See you guys next week. Adios.